Alright, everyone, so it is the first day of Vlogoween. I will try to give you guys as much spooky-ish content as I can. Um, Trying to think of some ideas because a lot of the good ones I had already done a few years ago, so we're gonna see what I can come up with this month. So for today's video, the first video, I want to talk about the horror or spooky-ish things that I have written, which is not a whole lot, but there's enough for you to read in spooky season. So, I'm going to first talk about my latest project that I have published, which is called Jackalope Fangs. Jackalope Fangs is going to be the first in a series called Tales of Shadow Oaks, so you're not always going to see all of the characters in here at all times, but there's going to be recurring characters because it's going to be about a town called Shadow Oaks and, the spooky things that happen in Shadow Oaks. Um, so, Jackalope Fangs. Jackalope Fangs is about a woman named Guinevere, or just Gwen, who has moved back in with her parents after a breakup. So Gwen, is as expected, kind of heartbroken, but she's trying to move on. She got a new job. Life is going okay. Her mother, however, is seeing jackalopes in her dreams. So her mother is a writer and she writes like primarily horror and stuff like that. And she really likes like mythological creatures and cryptids and stuff. Her favorite is the jackalope, but she thinks jackalopes are kind of more whimsical than scary. That they would belong in like maybe a children's book versus like a horror novel. But in her dreams and stuff, she is seeing jackalopes with fangs, which is unusual. I mean, jackalopes themselves are unusual. A jackalope is a rabbit with antlers, basically. So, already a little unusual, and now it's extra unusual. And because her mother is talking about jackalopes a lot more, Gwen starts seeing jackalopes herself, and she thinks it's just because her mother's talking about it all the time, it's gotten into her head. She's dreaming about them, but then she starts seeing them in real life, or at least she thinks so. And then she's finding things like antlers and stuff, but, she's trying to convince herself that it's, just a coincidence, right? They don't live too far from the woods, and her mother's always talking about jackalopes. you know, Maybe a deer lost its antlers nearby and she's just, making stuff up in her head because she's hearing about jackalopes all the time. There's got to be a logical explanation for things, right? Wrong. So the family decides to go on a camping trip to kind of clear their heads, right? They're thinking that Gwen and her mom, whose name is Helen, they're just too focused on work and they're kind of driving themselves crazy. So maybe getting out in nature, getting away from it all will help. Well, on the first night, her mother, she sees opening the tent to go and walk somewhere. And she asks what's going on, and her mother talks about jackalopes. So she brings her mom back to bed thinking that she's just sleepwalking, right? She's dreaming about these jackalopes like she normally does. She's sleepwalking. Then the next morning, the mom is gone. And they go looking in the forest for her, and they come upon a jackalope. And then they follow the jackalope to a part of their town that they didn't know existed. So that is Jackalope Fangs. Now I will talk about some of my short stories. So, in my book, Another World Called Ours, which is more YA than anything else, I would say, if you want to talk about target audience. That one's a little bit more on the YA side, whereas I Don't Know These Shadows, I would say more older YA adult kind of thing. None of my books will have anything like deeply inappropriate in them. I don't think some of my stories, have anything. They barely even have like hugging or kissing in them. Just not something I'm interested in writing about. So, the most mature thing in my stories is going to be probably swearing and maybe mild depictions of violence. I do not do gore. I can't do that. So, um, pretty much if you can get past like mature language, my books are pretty much for everyone. Um, but the characters in I Don't Know These Shadows are more older than the ones in Another World Called Ours. So, Another World Called Ours is more fantasy-ish, but it does have some darker moments, or at least ones that can be kind of like Halloween-y kind of thing, right? So one of them is Night of the Killer Cupcakes, which is about um, three friends who find a spell book basically from one of their aunts, and they bring cupcakes to life, and the cupcakes are not nice. So this one is kind of scary humor-ish, more humor-ish, but again, it's killer cupcakes. Another one is Risen Amy, where a girl is attacked by her family and she is brought back, and they help her, get justice and everything. So that one's a little bit more on the darker side. There is one called A Jar of Earth, which has sort of a creepy ending. That one is about a person who meets a friend at like a cafe, and they kind of catch up and stuff. Rain and Dandelions, that one is not meant to be scary, but it is about a ghost. It is about a girl who finds or comes across a magic wishing dandelion, and she wishes to, be able to have a day with her late sister. So, again, not really scary, but it is technically a ghost story. Um, there's one called Texting Zombie Parents, which that one is more of a humorous zombie story about kids who have zombie parents. Now we will move on to I Don't Know These Shadows, because I don't think I have any more like really Halloweenish or scary stories from Another World Called Ours. So let's move on. I will tell you about the stories in I Don't Know These Shadows. No, these are 10 short stories, all revolving around something scary, right? So I might not get all of these in order, but I'm going to try. So the first one is It's Zombie Killing and Pizza Night. And this one was pretty much uh, inspired by what was going on with COVID and stuff. Um, and I started writing it at that time, but I didn't finish it till like a few years later because it went through some revisions and everything. But basically, it is about these two families that have been living together. Um, through this zombie pandemic, basically. And now the bans and stuff have kind of been lifted and stuff because they've found like a cure for this that they're, trying out and stuff. So there's still zombies, but it's a little safer to go out there now, right? So they send two of the older kids out to go get pizza because they've been stuck in this house for 6 months, like literally stuck in the house because there's zombies outside. But they pack like weapons and food and stuff. But they just want something normal. And now that it's a little safer, they're venturing out. Well, they get to the pizza place and somebody was not cured of the zombie virus. So, won't give too much of the story away. So that one's a little bit of a mix of horror and humor. Inspired by some real life stuff. Another one inspired by some real life stuff, which I'm sure many of us have gone through, is creepy people online, right? I'm sure so many of us have gotten these weird messages from people that, you write to them like once or twice and they're already saying like, really inappropriate things, or, that they want a relationship, and it's like, what are you talking about? It's like, I met you online 20 minutes ago. I don't even know if you're real. I could be lying to you, right? That thing. Some people are just like annoying about it, but some people get really creepy, and that's what this story is about. This is about a woman named Ella who, she is broken up with her boyfriend because he was cheating on her, and her friend suggests that she goes on this pen pal site to meet new people. Now she just wants to be like friends with somebody. She's not ready for a relationship, but there's that option there. This other person she's talking to wants one, but she's not ready for that. And he gets really delusional and pretty dangerous. Another one, which is more a narrative kind of, I don't know if you would call it a narrative poem per se, but it's more like a second person point of view kind of thing. It's really short and it's more kind of sad in a way. It's more about loss, but kind of has that creepy atmosphere. At least that's what I was trying to go for. This one is Invisible You, Kind You, stuff like that. So this person is talking to somebody that has passed on, right? And they're kind of, being haunted by this person's presence in a way. That is where the title Invisible You comes from. It's written in that story. It's one of my favorites to write because I like the ones that are kind of sad in a way but have that creepy atmosphere, right? Because like one of my favorite poems is The Raven, which that one pretty much is what I said. Very atmospheric, but also sad at the same time. There is a story called The Eyes in the Woods, and that one is about two sisters who go to their fathers to visit, and they discover that their stepmother is a monster. But not like the typical, oh, my stepmom hates me kind of thing, or two kids want to get rid of their stepmom kind of thing. No, they like all get along, but it's discovered that she has like the secret where she transforms into this creature, almost kind of like a werewolf kind of thing, but it's more like a cat monster or something close to that. Um, I didn't give like a specific type of animal, but it's like a werewolf kind of thing in a way. Another one is called Closed, and many people working in customer service can relate to this kind of story where workers finally, you know, get revenge on those rude customers. A Haunting Melody. This one, much like Rain and Dandelions and Invisible You, is more on the sad side. This is about a woman and her friend who go to a thrift store. Her friend Harper finds a harp and she decides to get it because it's like a sign to her, right? She wants to learn to do something um, new, like a new skill, a new hobby. So why not? There's a harp, and her name is Harper. She's like, it's got to be a sign, right? So she takes it home, and one day her friend is visiting. I don't know why I forgot that word. And she plays her like a little tune, like a little song she learned to play. She made it up on her own, trying to learn to play the harp. And after that, the melody is stuck in her head and she can't get it out. She's hearing this melody everywhere, and then she's seeing this weird vision of these two girls. One of them seems hurt and or sad, and she has to figure out why. Trying to see what else did I have in there. Oh, helping my dead friend get revenge. This is about a woman whose friend has been killed, and her ghost comes back to ask her for help seeking revenge on the person that did it. So maybe I have a couple ghost stories in this. I didn't even realize that. Or maybe I've just written more ghost stories than anything. But ghost stories can go either way, I feel. They can either be creepy and scary or sad. Rarely it's in between, but sometimes there is a balance. Then there is My Girlfriend Zinnia, which is about a woman and her girlfriend who basically, I guess you would describe as like a succubus kind of thing, right? Her girlfriend looks human, but she feeds off people and stuff. And this one is a little emotional in some aspects, but maybe the closest I've gotten to anything close to gore, and it's still pretty tame, I would say. Then there is Red Bobby, which is about a brother and sister who are getting food, and then they look outside and see people that look like them and discover that there are doppelgangers around, and they're not the nicest of people, these copies. Then there is Acting, which is about a woman who goes to audition for a movie, and one of the people helping is not what they seem. So that is some of the spooky stuff that I have written. Some stories have been unpublished and they need to go through some editing and stuff. So this is the stuff that you can actually find and read and buy if you'd like. I have started a Substack, and for some reason I cannot link it on like my community tab. So I'm going to try to link it below, and also link places that you can buy my books if you would like. Anyways, bye bye everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you liked this video, and I hope the stories sound interesting.